Good morning. It's Sunday, March 1st. Thanks for joining us for News 8 this week. We are now just over 2 weeks away from the Illinois primary. It's coming up on March 17th. We've covered a number of races here on this show, including the race for Illinois' State Senate District 36. That seat is held by Democrat Mike Halpin. You've heard from him, and you've heard from Brad Beekman. He's a Republican hoping to unseat Halpin, but he's not the only one. Republican Patrick Harlan will face Beekman in the primary, and he joins us now to talk about his efforts to represent many of our viewers and certainly to flip that seat. Pat, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for letting me come on. I'm really looking forward to meeting with you today.
So let's talk a little bit about who you are. I know there's a lot of Republicans who are familiar with you. This is not your first race, but give us a sense, in case anyone doesn't know who you are, what your background is and what got you into this race.
Yeah, so I'm Patrick Harlan, also known as the blue collar fuel hauler from Galesburg, Illinois. I got into this race because it was time for real change. It's time for a everyday working class man to stand up and represent our district. I feel as if I'm the best person to be able to do that, as every day I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I start my shift. I get to my truck, I work from 3 a.m. till 3 p.m., still punching that time clock, trying to make ends meet. So, when it comes down to the true values of what this district looks like, which is the blue collar working class folks, I represent those values.
So let's talk a little bit about how those values translate into the legislative work that you would have to do. Have you given some structure to what you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, I want to work on looking at the Safety Act. The Safety Act for our community has been detrimental for all of us, and we've all experienced it. It's tough on businesses, it's tough on communities, and I want to make sure that we are able to reform that Safety Act. Number two is our energy cost is extremely high. Our power bills, when J.B. Pritzker first got elected, my bill was $300 a month, and now it's about $700. Reality is, I can't keep on affording to pay $700 a month for my energy costs for my power bill. And our education system right now is really weak. We have a little over 20% of our kids coming out of their grade levels able to read, write, and do math at their levels. And what the legislators decided to do is bring down the bar, lower the bar of expectations, rather than figuring out how we can put the money back into the classroom where it actually belongs. And so those are three main topics that I want to focus on: is working with our law enforcement, our energy costs to come down, and getting our education strong again.
So let's start on education, since that's the last thing you mentioned there. One of the challenges in the state of Illinois is basically the tug of war, seemingly, between the state and the federal government. How would you handle that a little bit? Because you are still going to be more than likely in a Democratic and a blue state who is trying to deal with whatever interactions it's having with the Trump administration.
Correct. Yes. So I believe that we have local school boards for a reason, to give our educators and our parents a voice in the classrooms. We need to back off of the bureaucracy. We're very top heavy in our education system. And so it's not that we are weak on funds. We are currently paying around $20,000 per student to go to a public school, when in reality, I sent my three children through a private school, K through 8, and it was cost me around $8,000 a year for all three. So at the end of the day, we're wasting a lot of money on top heavy. And so we need to focus on getting the money back into the classroom where it belongs, giving our educators the support. We have very wonderful educators who can do a wonderful job. Let's just bring that money back in there.
Let's talk about energy a little bit. There's a lot of things driving that, certainly. But can you touch upon sort of your thoughts on the AI data centers, which have seemingly been blamed for some of these rising costs because they are consuming so much energy? And can you talk about the direction that Governor Pritzker wants to take the state and sort of fast-tracking some of these nuclear sites?
Yeah, so I don't believe that we are set up currently in the state of Illinois to be able to take care of these AI data centers, because they do drain a lot from communities. And, where we are right now with our energy is we are shutting down our peaker plants when we have great coal right here in Illinois. We're buying dirty coal from other states, importing it back in here when we need to focus on getting our coal strong again. We have enough energy in this state alone where we are energy rich: natural gas, oil, coal. Focus on what we have here to where we become the mass exporter, get our peaker plants fired back up. It's great that Pritzker wanted to, kind of pound on his chest there at the state of the state about him making an executive decision to get the nuclear plants going again. However, we can't give him too much credit because he's the reason why the nuclear plants were down for the last 10 years. So it's time that we just be real about this and bring some common sense back here again.
So your first challenge really is going to be in this primary. How do voters discern between you and Brad Beekman in that primary race?
Well, Brad's a great guy, but I've worked hard. I mean, I've been out here and I've met a lot of people. I feel as if the difference is that, I mean, I have a true fighting voice here. I focus strictly on the people, and it's time for common sense. Somebody who's not going to go down there and take time to learn, rather somebody who can go down there and address the issue and not be afraid. You have to be bold. You have to be courageous, and you have to fight for your people back home in the district. You don't just go along to get along. And I feel as if I'm that guy who's going to shake the system, and they know that I'm going to come down there and shake that system. And I'm going to fight for the people back here in the 36th district. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter to me. I want what's best for us back home here. And that's what I'm focused on.
All right, so let's fast forward here. Let's say you get that Republican nomination. You'll be facing Halpin. You have talked in the past, I heard you talk to a group of Republicans about how you've sensed a changing tide, if you will, over the past few years. More Republicans you've seen take positions of leadership in our area. Are you seeing that, and are you sort of part of that and relying on that to hopefully flip the seat, the 36th seat?
What I am relying on is my blue collar work ethic. When you have a man who really goes to work every day, not a career politician, that's out here living the same lifestyle as what the people are. I believe that, with me being I was a local 710 Teamsters, local 150 operators. I've spent my whole entire life as a union member. I have a broken back to prove it. I have a disc in my neck that's been blown out. I mean, I have spent my life providing for my family and going through the tough times and struggles of what it takes to be able to make it work here in the state of Illinois. So I represent the working class folks. That's something that Mike Halpin does not do. And I feel as if I do bring that true value, and that's where they're going to see me as being the strong leader and the strong voice for them. Now, let's not forget, I have also been a Chamber of Commerce 20 under 40. I've been a very successful insurance agent. So not only am I just a blue collar truck driver, but I've also been elected to a county board. I have helped flip seats in Knox County. I've been active in my community. I've also been a coach for Costa Catholic Academy School. I've been a youth group leader for children who want to go out to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. I've been very active in my community. I was a former Rotarian. There's things that I've always been involved in my community. So it's not just that I'm just this blue collar truck driver. There's a lot more behind what you're seeing here. And I can bring a lot of values to the table. And that's where I can fit in and be able to talk the talk and walk the walk, because I've lived all lifestyles.
All right, last question for you here. Certainly, being involved in the community, you hear from a lot of your neighbors about issues that perhaps are that they're thinking about, right? But when you get onto the campaign trail and you begin to knock on doors and actually talk to people and say, hey, I'm looking to go to the state Senate, what have you heard that has impacted you the most, or perhaps motivated you the most to continue this race?
People are hungry, man. The money's drying up, and people are hungry. SNAP benefits are getting hard. We're experiencing mental health crisis. A lot of folks are losing hope, and it's really disheartening that we're in a culture war right now. This isn't a Republican or Democrat thing. This is a situation where we have forgotten who we are as people. And when you're going to doors and you're meeting with folks who truly just feel like nobody hears them or listens to them anymore, and you're seeing what they're going through, that's what's really keeping me driving here, is because at the end, I want to help people. I don't want to see people hungry. I don't want to see these mental health crises going on. I want us to be able to invest back into the things that are important. Mental health has to be strong, and we have to be able to focus on that. People shouldn't be trying to figure out if they're going to pay their power or put food on their table. Those things are hurting me bad. And that's the stuff I've been talking to people about all the time. All these things are issues, but until we can actually focus on what's really the root cause of all this, the true culture that we're dealing with right now, we're so much about pitting one party against the other, or pitting this person against the other. And we have to come together and lift each other back up again to be able to bring hope and strength back to this community again.
All right, Pat, it's been great to meet you. Great to learn a little bit about your campaign and your efforts. Thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Last week, you saw our interview with two Iowa lawmakers hoping to incentivize the Chicago Bears to cross state lines. As of a few days ago, that bill was still in subcommittee at the State House. And on Thursday, Indiana Governor Mike Braun signed a bill that would pave the way for a new stadium for the Bears in the city of Hammond. Now, the bill would give local governments power to negotiate with the Bears over property tax payments. The bill would also apply to other large projects and hopefully attract mega developers to the state. So, where is Illinois in all of this? Well, we caught up with State Senator Lee Ariano to get an update on what's happening at the State House and what's complicating the conversation. Senator, good to have you on the show. Let me start by talking about and understanding what is the latest that's happening. What is happening in the State House that's getting momentum as it relates to the Bears?
Sure. What's working on right now is the House Revenue Committee is considering a bill that would deal with mega projects, including the Bears, but this could also include data centers and any other large project, potentially anything over $100 million where it starts. And it's a package of incentives, especially around things like property tax and sales taxes on construction purchasing, that would in theory, the governor hopes promote more economic development. I would argue it's a bit of a reaction to our negative business climate in Illinois compared to surrounding states, forcing us to incentivize a little bit more than we should have to for normal growth.
Okay, I'm going to come back a little bit to kind of what you think about that plan, but I want to jump around a little bit because I want you to lay the groundwork, and you were sort of beginning to talk about it there. What is the condition like in Illinois that you think is causing this? Because some might say, hey, maybe the Bears are just shopping for a good deal,
Right. Right.
or is it really a reaction to the conditions in Illinois?
It's probably both of those components. Obviously, the Bears are like any other business. They are trying to negotiate a good deal for themselves and for their long-term health as a business. But also, it's based on very real concerns of how expensive Illinois has gotten. And I'll give you a real quick analysis. During testimony in that committee yesterday, their Arlington Heights property, if it was kept at the normal taxation rates for a business of that size, would have potentially property tax burdens north of 200 million a year. To put that in perspective, the next highest one I could find is SoFi over in California, which is not a cheap state, and their property tax burden is about 9 million a year. So the delta is massive. Obviously, there was going to need to be some negotiations. And then the question is, do we just give them a tax break, or do they get a tax break and then there's a shift to surrounding tax payers for that difference? Those are the kind of debates being happening in Springfield right now. One of the things that making this part of the discussion confusing is the Bears are the center stage of this bill, and that was the conversation. But what their governor actually is trying to move right now is a statewide bill for any project. So you're seeing things like the data center debate getting pulled into this. And for example, there are bills getting pushed that I believe the governor supports to put a freeze on incentivizing data centers. And that's working in Springfield right now because it's a hot political topic. There's water usage, gas usage. Is it affecting energy bills? And so we're looking at putting a moratorium on, extra incentives for them. And then this bill does the opposite. And so that part is a really complicating factor for this whole thing. And that's why waiting until the last minute when they were looking at Indiana to actually get moving has been so problematic from a planning perspective, because now all these other things, both politically and in terms of policy, are getting pulled in. And that's hard to explain to folks because we're expecting a separate, maybe stadium specific bill like Indiana did. And that's confusing because people are looking at what Indiana's doing. That's a regional specific, stadium specific bill to the Hammond area. What we're doing we're not even to that stage yet. What we're doing is a broader statewide incentive package and then moving on that. And the fact that we're so far behind, I think, is very confusing to people. The other thing that I'd say is easy to miss is Indiana's tax rates are so much lower that they have more room to negotiate. So Illinois is a very high tax state, way higher tax than Indiana. So when we do incentives, in tax shift, it's on top of taxpayers who are already at the highest end of the state scales across America. Whereas Indiana is very middle of the road. Their property taxes, I believe, in the Hammond area are more than half what Arlington Heights are. So they have a lot of gap space, wiggle room to build an incentive package, and we're kind of doing it on top of all the other tax increases.
Yeah, you mentioned that you didn't think that Illinois taxpayers should effectively bail out the conditions of the state. Um, what sort of incentive, if any, do you think is appropriate so that it's not the taxpayers carrying that burden?
That's a great question. And I'm a firm believer in anchor projects. I've done economic development as a mayor, so things like infrastructure, road upgrades, traffic signals, studies, environmental support. Those are all things that government should reasonably doing for any business district and for any business. And that scales up for bigger businesses. So if you're going to do hundreds of millions of development, and generate a lot of new revenue and jobs, obviously you're going to get more infrastructure support. Once you start getting past that is where you begin to play with picking winners and losers. And that's where I start to get very skeptical, because if you and I wouldn't get a break for opening up a small shop, whether it's a hair salon or a sandwich shop in my case, but the people who are much richer than me get a break on their businesses, you're starting to distort the free market and you're starting to distort the community. And this is where, on both sides of the ideological aisle, you will get arguments that, are you making the rich richer or are you doing economic development?
Let's go back to the solution that's on the table right now. What do you think about it? Do you like it? Would you tweak it?
So I do not like it at all as it stands. And one of the reasons is because it automatically triggers for projects. So that means there are projects, take, for example, a data center that may have been planning to come to Illinois anyway, but now there's all this extra taxpayer money on the table automatically that they can negotiate with from local governments. Of course, they're going to try to grab that. That's just good business. So if they were going to come anyway, but they get an extra, say, 50 million in breaks, and that cost shifts onto other property tax payers in that region, that's very bad negotiation and very bad economic development. So remember, this phase of the bill, because they're expecting another stadium specific bill, this bill would apply to anyone, anywhere in Illinois, starting with projects over $100 million. And to me, the most egregious part of the bill is that risk of property tax shift. New construction raises the levy, but if you get a break to the person raising it, it disperses potentially to other taxpayers.
What would you like to see done? Because I don't think anybody wants to see the Bears leave the state.
Right. Absolutely. No, I don't want to see them winning a Super Bowl for Indiana. That's nuts. I don't want to see that. I think the infrastructure part needs to get done. They've been working on that for 3 years. Unfortunately, the governor kind of blew off that infrastructure ask for years until Indiana really came on the table. Now he has said that is on the table. It should have been on the table all along. That part we actually have to get done. And I think that part has the potential for bipartisan appeal. We want infrastructure growth because infrastructure growth leads to economic growth. We know that. So that part needs to happen as soon as possible to show the Bears were serious.
All right. I appreciate the clarity on this issue, and thanks for updating us. Have a great weekend. All right.
All right. Thank you. You too.
The John Deere Classic is the biggest sporting event in the Quad Cities, but there is so much more than golf going on. Sports Director Corey Kuffler has more on this year's concerts on the course.
The first concert announcement has been made for the 2026 John Deere Classic, and I don't know if it was written in the stars or written in the sand here in the bunkers at TPC Deere Run.
Are we written in the stars, babe? Or are we written in the sand?
But Old Dominion coming home.
When I'm on my way, I'm almost there.
Well, not actually home, but they're coming here to the Quad Cities, and Tournament Director Andrew Lehman is excited to have the first act for this year's John Deere Classic.
We've been looking at Old Dominion for a couple of years, and it hasn't quite worked in their tour schedule. And to be able to get them here this summer, it's going to be awesome, and know that they're going to throw quite the party on Sunday, July 5th. To have them be very similar to Zac Brown Band certainly doesn't hurt, and the show that they put on was spectacular. But we also know what a great entertainment group that Old Dominion is, and know that they're going to put on an awesome show, and it's going to be a fun way to close out tournament week this year.
Tickets for this year's John Deere Classic go on sale on March 31st. WQAD, once again, proud to be the official station of the John Deere Classic.
That'll do it for us this morning. Thanks for watching. Have a restful Sunday, everyone.